Come on in, hit that like button. Let me know where you're checking in from. Not gonna do a long, drawn out intro tonight. 3 or 4 instrumentals. Keep it simple with one. Box truck stories. This is something that a lot of people been asking me to do for over a year now. It's something I never really got around to doing, but I did promise people that I would start doing it, and I've been promising people that for about a year. So we're gonna start. The first story I'm gonna tell is why I chose a box truck over the rat race. Um, and the reason why I decided to start this new series with this story is because I see a lot of people that are coming into the space or just, starting businesses in general. And when you ask them why they want to become an entrepreneur, they all say the same thing. They want to create generational wealth, or they want to be able to not work as much and reap the benefits of having a business without doing the work. And I never understand why people say that, because when you start a business, what people need to understand and what they fail to realize is you're going to work harder. You're just working harder for yourself. So I'm not expecting a lot of people. Maybe a lot of people will come in. I don't care. People will watch the replay. So that's another reason why I didn't do a long, drawn out intro, waiting for the room to build up. So we just going to get started. So why did I choose um, a box truck over the rat race? All right. So the story starts back in, I would say 2003. So June 2003 is when I graduated from college. Um, Went to college, took 5 years to get my degree, switched my major from computer science, which I kind of regret, to business. But I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just never knew what I wanted to do, but I did know way back when I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That's one reason why I switched my major. The other reason why I switched my major is because back then, um, it was different than it is now. A lot of the professors, when I went to school, when I first went to college in '98, that were teaching computer science were foreign. They were foreign teachers. So I couldn't really understand. They all had deep accents, and I really couldn't follow the lectures because I just couldn't make out what they were saying. So I saw that in my computer science courses, my grades weren't where I would have liked them to be. And the main reason was I just really couldn't understand the lectures. I couldn't follow the professors because their accents were very, 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 very deep. You're talking about '98. The internet was still very, very, very new. Um, and it wasn't as advanced as it is now. So that was the other reason why I switched my major. So I switched my major to business, graduated in '03. Upon graduation, obviously, it was time to go look for a job, a career, I would say. I worked in retail all through college. I worked at the Gap. I started working there 2 months after high school graduation. So graduated high school June of '98, started working at the Gap August of '98. Worked there all the way through college. I got fired from there April of 2003, which was my last semester uh, of college upon graduating. And anybody that's been to college, that usually that last semester is usually courses that you need to take to graduate. And those courses aren't readily, or not, I don't want to say readily, they're just not as available as a lot of the prerequisite liberal arts courses that you take freshman year. There's business 101, or let's say algebra 101 every 2 hours. But those courses that you need to graduate, they may be offered once or twice a week, and whenever those courses are offered, obviously you got to be available to take them, uh, so that you can graduate. So I had been at the Gap 5 years. I was a manager by this point. So since I was taking those courses, I had to move my schedule around, and I'm working full time there, right? At the Gap. I'm in college full time, and I had a second job. Uh, I was a rep. This is back when the record labels had street teams, so I was the Chicago rep for Def Jam. So after I would get off at the Gap at 11 o'clock, I would have to go home, um, and pick up everything I need to pick up, and then I would have to head back downtown to hit the clubs, right? Because I had to service the DJs. This is back when vinyl was still in, so I had to go get a DJ's vinyl records. I'd have to pass out, sample cassette tapes, still cassette tape CDs. The record labels weren't really giving out CDs back. They were, but it was a mixture of cassette tapes and CDs. So sample CDs, sample cassette tapes. We would get the promo CDs, which we would service to like the DJs as well, along with the vinyl. And then you could utilize some of those promo CDs to buy your way into places that you might have not been able to get into. Perks came with being a record label representative. So I got a cool Def Jam varsity jacket. I had to we called it sniping the poles. This is back when we had to put the big poster boards on the poles. So I would do that to about 3, 4 in the morning, because most of the times I would have to be still at the club for let out, because if I had uh, boxes of samples to give out, I would have to pass those out at let out. So that would be 3, 4 in the morning. I would make it home maybe about 4:35. I would be back up at 7, so that I could head downtown to school. Usually from 8. First class starts at 8. Second class usually starts around 10. Is over with by like 12:40, close to 1. And then I would work at the Gap from 2 to 11, and then back to the clubs, and I would do that pretty much all throughout the week. So after I graduated from college, I was looking for a job. I had braids at the time, uh, so I cut my hair, which I didn't really want to do, um, and I set out to go look for jobs. I applied with a bunch of jobs. Back then, it was some websites, Monster.com, what else? Yahoo Jobs, Lycos Jobs. These were early search engines. Google was still new. They weren't what you know today as Google. I never really used Google back then. Back then, it was pretty much AOL search engine, Lycos search engine, um, um, pretty much what I use for search engine. As far as jobs, I looked on Monster.com or Yahoo Jobs .com. Uh, interviews. Never got a job. No one really hired me. Applied for like a bunch of cell phone companies. Cell phone companies back then were pretty big on hiring college graduates for sales positions. I remember going to U.S. Cellular for an interview. I was, fresh out of college, had gotten fired from the Gap, so I didn't have a job. The girl who I was dating at the time, she drove me out there. It was near the airport, and she waited in the car for me while I went in, had my suit on, and did the interview. I knew walking out of there they weren't gonna give me a job, so I didn't have any success. So saw an ad in the paper that Target, around that time, Target was, they were building, they were just coming to town, and they were building aggressively, in the Chicagoland area. So I saw they had put an ad out, and they were building a new store um, on the southwest side of town. So I applied, since I had management experience from the Gap. I applied at Target. Sure enough, they gave me a call, had me come in for an interview. I got the job. They hired me not as a manager out the gate. They hired me as a stock supervisor, because I was a stock manager at the Gap. So they hired me for a stock supervisor, and they hired me for an overnight stock supervisor. I never worked overnight before, but I had been out of work since April of 2003. They hired me in December 2003 to open up this new store. I had to take it because I was broke. I had a brand new pickup truck, which was that Chevy Avalanche that I've talked about, which kind of got me my start on Craigslist years later. So this is just a testament to how God, kind of orders your steps. You know what I'm saying? I really wanted an Escalade EXT back then. They had just came out with the Escalade EXT, and the Chevy Avalanche was the cheaper version of it. So the Cadillac EXT back then in '02 was 51,000. 51,000 now, well, to me is a drop in the bucket. It might still be expensive to a lot of people, but 51,000 back then was a lot of money for an SUV. It was the pickup truck Escalade. They don't make it no more. Couldn't afford it, so I got a Chevy Avalanche, and I said I was going to customize the Chevy Avalanche, which I ended up doing to make it look like uh, the EXT. So I paid 33,000 for the Chevy Avalanche, and I couldn't even afford a 4x4 at the time. So my Avalanche was a 2-wheel drive pickup truck, which was kind of embarrassing years later when we had some snowstorms and I would get stuck in the snow with that big old pickup truck, and it was pretty embarrassing. But I got what I could afford, and I really couldn't afford that. No, it was $600, $660 a month. Remember, this is '02. Well, $660 a month was a lot, and I didn't have a job anymore, so I had to do something. So I took the job at Target. So I had a 5-year job at the Gap, which I learned a lot as far as HR, hiring, operation skills, so on and so forth. Picked the job at Target. So now I'm dealing with um, not retail as far as clothes, but I'm dealing with more general merchandise. So a truck would come in, sometimes 2 trailers would come in every night, and it was my job to oversee the overnight crew, unload the trailer or trailers if it was 2. During the holidays, sometimes it would be 3. Roll the stuff down the line, have the people on the line sorting the stuff to get pushed out to the floor. Then you had the push team out on the floor that was stocking the shelves, and this would go on from 10 to 6 a.m. So from 10, we had to unload the trailers, sort the stuff, push the stuff to the floor, and then backstock all the stuff that couldn't get pushed to the floor. So from there, I hated it. I didn't really, like the job. It was obvious to the upper management that I didn't like it. So what they did was they took me off overnight and they put me on the day. Still didn't like it. They didn't like me. I didn't like them. All right. I just didn't like uh, being trapped uh, in that store. The Gap was way better um, than Target. I just didn't like it. It might have been that location. It might have been the superiors over me. I just didn't like it. So um, the following year, I was there about a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half. So in '05, I can't remember the month, I got fired. Every day I would, have to be there at 8 in the morning when they took me off overnights and put me on days. And every morning I would get up and I'd just be sitting on the edge of the bed like, man, I hate this job. I hate this job. I don't want to go. So me sitting there that little 10, 15 minutes just contemplating would always make me late. I would be late maybe 7 or 8 minutes. The grace period was 7 minutes. I'll be punching in at 8:08, 8:09. So eventually they started writing me up. And they were preparing, to get rid of me. So they go through the process. They give you the verbal, then they give you written, then they give you the final, then they terminate you. So I knew it was coming. I knew that I didn't have the enthusiasm to go there. Um, they didn't like me. I didn't like them. I hated it. I just didn't like it. So eventually it came. They fired me. So I'm struggling to pay this truck note. That's the only bill I had. I think I had a Nextel too at the time. Yeah, I had a Nextel and my truck note, but that was a high truck note. So I'm struggling. Mom's helped me, you know, to pay the truck note. whenever I would come up with some extra money, I would throw it on the truck note. That's the only bills I had. I was still living at home. So now I'm back on the job market again. No one is hiring me. No one is giving me an opportunity. You know, you're talking about the mid 2000s. So, the job market back then was very competitive. I don't think, in the type of careers that I was looking to get into, I don't think I fit the mold. I don't think I fit, you know, what you would typically see in some of those positions, and some of those companies that I was applying for. Even when I was going in for the interviews, I just knew that I would have a hard time if I were to get hired in some of these corporate places, um, fitting in. And God must have knew that too, because he never even gave me the opportunity. I never even got a second interview at none of these corporate jobs, none of them. And I don't think it was the way that I was interviewing. I just think I just didn't fit the mold. So I'm still looking. I'm still looking. I'm still looking. I see an ad for um, an advertising company, mm, and it was to drive a promotional vehicle. Now, mind you, I had experience working for Def Jam, um, doing street promotion during college. I wasn't doing that anymore. The reason why I stopped doing that, I think it was like 2001. It was right after like the backstage tour, because I got a chance to do a little of that tour in this region. I think it was like right after the backstage tour, like so maybe the end of 2000, maybe beginning of 2021. The regional for this area got fired because we ended up going to a college radio station. It was there were music conferences back in the day. You had Impact, and you had Jack the Rapper. I never got a chance to go to Impact or Jack the Rapper. The record label wouldn't pay for me to go, but they would send the guy who was over me for the region. So he went to Impact, which was down in Miami at that time, for that summit, and he gave me instructions what to do while he was away. I was serving some DJs, and one of the DJs I had to service was this DJ by the name of Third Rail, and he was a college DJ, and he did like nightclub DJing, for like a lot of college parties. So I went up to Northwestern to service him, and he said he wasn't going to play any more Def Jam records. So I reported to the guy who I was working for, that was the regional for Def Jam, L, and he was like, "All right, well, when I get back, pick me up at the airport." And I get back Sunday night, and that's when his show is, Sunday night. Picked him up from the airport at O'Hare. We went to the radio station. He was on live. He approached the dudes. It's like a scrawny white dude who played hip hop. L is like a big, muscular, black dude. He was like, "Man, why you not playing the records?" He said, "Man, I'm not playing Def Jam records no more. Blah, 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 for whatever reason." So L stole off of him and beat him up pretty bad. This guy calls Def Jam. We have a conference call the next day. They fired L, and they got rid of everybody that L brought in. So I kind of lost that opportunity by default. All right, so boom, going back to about 05, 06. So now I get hired by this not delivery company, by this advertising company who was based out of Pennsylvania. It's a national advertising company, and it's just basically driving a mobile advertisement vehicle around in the market, depending on what uh, the account is for. They had McDonald's, they had Boost Mobile at that time, Bank of America, Cricket Wireless, so on and so forth. So there was a guy, I applied online. The guy called me right back. He was staying at a hotel out by the airport, I think. No, he was staying in the west suburbs. He was like, "Well, I'm here. If you want to come out and meet, you can come out tomorrow." He gave me the time. He drove the promotional vehicle here from the East Coast with the sole purpose of hiring somebody in this market, because there was a campaign for McDonald's for 4 months. So he drove the vehicle here. He was a cool dude from New York. He was the recruiting guy. So he drove it here. I went in, did the interview, talked to him about Def Jam. It just so happened that he was from New York and he worked on the Bad Boy Street team. So we kind of bonded over that. He was like, "Well, shit, you just made my job easy. I'm just going to give you the job." So I ain't even got to interview nobody else. I'm finna actually call the rest of these interviews and tell them don't come. and we did the paperwork there. We went outside. He showed me everything, gave me the keys to the vehicle, and gave me the route. Did my all my W-4 stuff, and it was on after that. So I did that for 4 months, and then after that McDonald's campaign was over, they sent me to Kentucky to do a campaign for cricket. After Kentucky, I went to Baltimore for a month to do a campaign for Verizon. After Baltimore, which was like the Thanksgiving of '06 or '07, I can't remember. I remember that Gucci album, that Gucci mixtape was out. I forget which mixtape it was. Dirty Laundry mixtape, because that's what I was bumping. So after I did the month in Baltimore for Verizon, and that was Thanksgiving. I was there for Thanksgiving, which was kind of, I felt real lonely and shit because I never was gone away from home for so long. And then from Baltimore, they sent me to do a 2-week campaign in Miami for, I think it was Bank of America, right? So I drove from Baltimore to Miami, did that 2-week campaign, and then I got to come home for Christmas. So I drove from Miami back to Chicago, and I did a few more campaigns. I went to Houston for a month to do a campaign for Verizon, I believe, and a few other markets. But eventually, I ended up letting that job go because I just got tired of being away. Whenever there was an advertising campaign in Chicago, obviously I would get first dibs on it. And there were some. I was home most summers, but during those winter times, I had to go wherever they sent me if I wanted to continue to make money. So after I got tired of doing that, I ended up working for a buddy of mine, had an urban clothing store here in Chicago. So I worked from him for like '08 to 2010. So I learned a lot from the Gap. Obviously, I learned a lot from Target, operations, HR. How to deal with people. Right. I bought the pickup in '02, brand new, which I really couldn't afford. So all of this, right, this whole backstory, and the reason why I'm telling you this backstory is you're gonna see why later. But all these this journey is shaping me and it's molding me for what was to come. Now, mind you, I didn't know what was to come. I didn't know. I'm in my 20s. I'm still trying to figure things out. So now I'm working at this local urban clothing store, right? We selling all the urban fashion at that time. Academics, Nietzsche, Jordan Craig, whatever. We was also selling bootleg Gucci sneakers, bootleg Gucci belts, right? So we were selling urban fashion. We were selling a little bootleg. We had a shoe line, and we was also selling cell phones. Boost Mobile was real big at the time, right? So people would come in, either buy their Boost Mobile phone, and then they would also come back to the store and refill their minutes, right? Boom. The way the minutes would work back then, you would have to buy the minutes wholesale from a vendor. VHA was a vendor, Platinum Tel was a few vendors that they would buy the minutes from the supplier, which would be Sprint or whoever, and then you would go to the vendor, buy those minutes wholesale, and then people would come into the store and reboost their phone, and you would sell them the minutes, and then you would get a cut off of each reboost that you do, right? So I'm doing that, working for him, but he wanted to. Well, it was my idea to start an online website as well because a few years prior, I had started a small eBay business selling phone hosters, right? I was buying them for really really cheap on eBay. For like less than $1 each case or clip. And then I was reselling for like $4 or $5. It wasn't something that I was looking to make a lot of money off of. I was just trying to really understand e-commerce at that time early on. So he knew about it. I was telling him about it. So he was like, well, why don't we try to do that for the store? So I built it out for the store, the eBay uh, store, and we were selling Boost mobile phones, and we were selling the stuff that was in the store, the clothes. So I would take the pictures of everything, create, the listing, and manage, people that were asking questions when we bought stuff. When people bought stuff, I should say I was the one packaging it up, running to the post office. So eventually it got pretty big. I was running to the post office with a truckload of stuff. And then eventually it got so big that USPS, when they would deliver the mail, we would just have them, or we would schedule a pickup where I couldn't take all that stuff to the post office anymore. So I had built that online business for that store, and it got really, really big. Now, the thing with this guy that I was working for, Jamal, he had a bad temper. He had a bad temper. He paid exceptionally well, but he had a bad temper. I got fired from there like, I don't know, a million times. And so did everybody else. It was times where he fired the whole store and he would be the only one working in there by himself. Now, we in a bad neighborhood. We in an area on the south side, and they call themselves Brain Dead City. It's a beady area. They call themselves Brain Dead because they brain dead and they don't care. And it was plenty times where we would get into it. Well, he would get into it with people from the neighborhood, and we all was in there locked and loaded, you know what I'm saying? Not a conducive environment where you would want to be working. But I built that e-commerce store for him, and it was really, really successful. And eventually, he had one of his temper tantrums in July 2010. July 2010, and he fired me again. But that was the last time I was going to fire. I was tired of getting fired, then getting that call a day or 2 days later asking me to come back, and I just got tired of it. So about a week after that, I was on Craigslist because I was back in the same boat again. I had money saved up at this point, but I knew that money was going to run out because I had a really big truck note. I still hadn't paid that truck off. Well, no, I'm tweaking. The truck was paid off. The truck had been paid off 2 years. I paid the truck off in 2008. So 2010, I just knew I needed some money coming in. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking to sell some studio equipment. I had a bunch of studio equipment because I was managing an artist throughout the 2000s. So I had some CD towers because I was burning the CDs and, passing them out for free. But I'm like, man, skip this. I wasn't managing them no more. So I'm like, man, let me flip these CD towers. So I was on Craigslist posting a listing. I don't know how I ended up on Moving and Labor, but I did. And I saw an ad where someone said, we'll do small moves and deliveries with my pickup. I have a pickup. So I'm like, man, I need some money. So I just copied that ad, and then I created my own ad. I just pretty much plagiarized that person, copied it, and then pasted it and just put my name and number. And about 10 minutes later, I got a call. To my surprise, I didn't think I was going to get a call. Once I put the ad up, I kind of forgot about it and went back to posting me an ad to sell the CD burner. Guy called me anyway, said he needed a mattress move from the north side of Chicago to like the southwest side. So he was like, how much? I didn't know what to charge him. I didn't know nothing. I just said 75. He said, all right, when can you be here? So I'm like, well, give me like an hour. So I called one of my buddies who wasn't working at the time, this little scrawny little dude, was real small, you know what I'm saying? But I needed somebody. I figured it couldn't be too bad. It was just a mattress. I get there up north about 2.5 hours later. It's a king size mattress. No wrap, no nothing. I didn't even have no ratchets or nothing to tie the mattress down. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know nothing. I put an ad up and somebody called. So we struggled and get this king size mattress down 3 flights of stairs. I'd never moved nothing. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. We dirtied up the mattress. It was horrible. It was going to storage though. We threw the mattress on the back of the truck. Now, mind you, this is on the north side. We got to go to the south side, so I got to get on the expressway. So I'm hoping this damn mattress don't fly off the back of the damn pickup. And mind you, it's an Avalanche, so it wasn't like a Silverado or F-150, so it's not a full bed. You know what I'm saying? And it's the wheel well taking up space there as well. It's not like your Silverado or your F-150 or your Ram. So I drove really, really slow. I don't even think I got on the expressway. I think I took Ashland from the north side to the south side because we was going to the public storage on the south side, like 35th and Ashland. So I took the street, and we dropped it off safely. It was dirty, but we got it there. He paid us. And then I got another call while we were out. It was for a lady who had a couch, was coming off a second floor. So we went and did that. Um, we had a hard time getting the couch out. I didn't know how to L it. I didn't know nothing. Got it all the way down the stairs. It was a white couch. We messed it up. We dirtied it up. We ripped it. We snagged it. Um, we threw it on the back of the truck. No shrink wrap. No nothing. Got it to the place where it needed to go. Third floor. Struggling. Now I could muster up, you know what I'm saying, but the dude I had with me just wasn't cut out for it. But I continued to use him for the rest of the summer. So that couch, we never it ended up even getting it in the apartment. That lady who we was moving it for, she knew we were struggling. She knew we were doing a horrible job. She just didn't have the courage to tell us. So she ended up calling after about 2 hours of trying to get this couch in, because I didn't know how to L it. I didn't know nothing. She called a guy. He came over and he kind of took control of the situation. He was like, hey, I could tell you guys are tired. Just leave the couch on the back porch. We'll figure it out. We're probably going to have to call someone who's a little bit more stronger and more experienced. I didn't really take it to heart, man. We had been trying to get that thing in for 2 hours. They paid us and that was it. But I continued to post those ads every day from that day on, because from that day I made money. So I said, well, if I post ads every morning, I could make this same amount of money or more. And I continued to do that. So it went from 2 jobs that first day to 2 or 3 jobs to 3 jobs to 4 jobs to 5. And each day I did it, I would make money. I would average about $400 or $500 a day just doing small jobs. Next thing I know, I'm moving dorms in that pickup truck. People call me with small 1 bedrooms. I'm packing the truck. I'm good like Tetris. I ended up getting rid of that guy and hiring this guy named Aaron, who worked for a few moving companies. And then that's where I started really to learn the moving industry as far as all the techniques, right? Because he taught me. He was a big 6'3", 6'4" guy, real strong with a lot of moving experience. So now that you got the backstory that led me up to this point, why did I choose box truck over the rat race? So 2010, I worked that whole summer. Wintertime it slowed down, but we had odds and jobs throughout the winter. But from July to when it slowed down in September, I had did so many jobs. I had saved up a decent amount of money just out of my pickup truck. So I worked a little slow periods during the winter, going into 2011. When spring of 2011 came, me and Aaron, we were up and rolling full. And we were just running. We're doing 5, 6 jobs a day. We wouldn't get done some days to 11, 12, sometimes 1 in the morning, right back up at 6, 7. I was getting about 5, 6 jobs a day. From there, I rented a box truck, a 16-foot, because a light bulb popped in my head. Like, you know what? We sitting up here playing Tetris in this pickup truck. Why don't I rent a box truck? So I called Penske. Rates were pretty fair, $225 for the week, 10 cents a mile. Insurance was $10 a day, $5 for the supplemental, $5 for the liability. I said, give me both. So it was nothing. One job at that point would cover the truck for the week. You know what I'm saying? And now I was doing 3 a day. I knew I could be a little bit more efficient. So once I rented the 16-footer, and obviously I scaled up, but that's not the point of the story. But once I rented the 16-footer, I saw how much more efficient the jobs were. I didn't have to play Tetris as much as I had to do in this Chevy Avalanche, right? So while I was doing these jobs from July 2010 to the summer of 2011, I started to realize what was going on. I was building something, right? I was building something, and I was making more money than I had ever made in my life. No one gave me an opportunity. I never got an opportunity uh, to do something that I had went to school for. I graduated school and I ended up working at Target and then an advertising firm where I had to travel across the country to promote different brands. So I'm making the most money that I ever made in my life, and it was an opportunity that I ended up having to create for myself. Now, while I was out doing these jobs, there was a lot of things that I was experiencing. You know, coming from a poor family, my mother's a school teacher, but she's a public school teacher, and it takes time to really make money as a public school teacher. I don't know what other markets are like, but here it takes time to really start making six figures. She had to go back to school multiple times. She ended up getting multiple master's degrees. And each time she would go back and get a new master's degree in either special ed or case management or whatever. Obviously, she would get a bump, and then you would get your percentage raise uh, each year, right? So early in my childhood, she really wasn't making a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? So we came up poor. We moved around a lot. After my mom and dad got divorced, we moved around a lot from the west side, eventually to the southeast side. Uh, um, I went to public school. Uh, so, I didn't have a person to really, like a lot of people have parents who are in fields that can kind of like, that nepotism. I didn't have that, right? So I kind of had to figure things out, right, on my own. All right, so long story short, once I was out in the field, I started to experience things that I'd never seen before coming from the west side and then to the southeast side. I never really got a chance to go on the north side. All right, the north side is where all the affluent people live. Chicago's a very segregated city. So basically, I'm saying that's where all the white people live, right? All the white people live up north. I never really got a chance to go up north. I didn't know that side of town. Most of the jobs where people were booking for me on Craigslist were coming from that side of town. They were either coming from downtown or from up north. Now, going up north and not really ever going up there, I had to learn that area. I didn't know that side of town like I know the west side or the south side, right? So learning the streets because I'm going up there every day. Um, and I'm looking at the culture. It's like up there is just totally different. So I look forward every day to going up there. I'm noticing up there they got different things that I wasn't accustomed on the west side of the south side. All the storefronts were occupied. They got boxing gyms up there, smoothie places, yogurt places, uh, rock climbing places, just all types of just different things. People sitting outside, drinking tea and drinking coffee. You didn't see people standing on the corner. It's just vibrant up there and everybody's happy. And then when I would have to drive back at the end of the day, we have to drive back to the south side, get back to the south side, it's just doom and gloom. It's just everybody angry, everybody mad. It's just a different environment. So I would look forward to going up there every day and just being there in that environment, doing those 3 or 4 jobs, and I would be happy because it got me out of my environment. Uh, the next thing that was important to me was the people. Being and moving, it's a very personal career path, right? You're going into people's homes. I had never been into people's homes other than like family members or maybe friends. So I had never been in any person's home that was another ethnicity other than my own. So going into Chinese people's homes, Pakistanians, Ukrainians, just regular Caucasians, and not just different ethnicities, different uh, classes of life. You know what I'm saying? You're low class. I'd never seen poor white people. I didn't know poor white people existed. You're middle class. You're upper middle class, and I got the chance to go into wealthy people's homes as well. So it was like a culture shock for me. You know what I'm saying? It was a culture shock, and it was amazing. It was amazing to me. So I'm doing all this while I'm, you know, servicing, providing a service, but I'm learning. I'm learning stuff as well. Um, so different side of town, seeing how people live other than my ethnicity, right? Going into different people's homes, seeing how their homes are designed. I'm learning the different types of places, bungalows, ranches. I had never known that. I would hear my mom say, "Oh, that's a bungalow, or that's a Georgian, or that's a ranch, or that's a bi-level." But I had to learn this stuff because I'm going into different style places, every day. But I'm also seeing how people decorate their homes. I'm used to a certain type of interior design coming from my culture at that time period, but I'm seeing people that have professional interior decorators when we go into those upper middle class homes or condos or apartments or those rich people's homes out in Barrington or Glencoe or Winnetka. And it was amazing because now I'm looking like, man, if I ever get in a position where I can own a home, I would want to do my house like this, or I would want to do my house like that. So I'm learning about different cultures, how they live, how they decorate, how they act, family, how they just leave stuff around and don't care and don't hide stuff. They got us in their home and the iPad had just came out. They got the iPad laying around. They not hiding it. It showed me that, not everybody is racist. The things that I would hear, I would find out a lot of that stuff wasn't true. Um, I remember, uh, I'll never forget, it was July 31st, 2011. And you can look this up. Paul McCartney was paying Wrigley Field. We were doing a move right near Wrigley Field in an area called Wrigleyville. It's called Wrigleyville because it's by Wrigley Field. Um, Paul McCartney was playing. He played 2 nights. He played July 31st and he played August 1st of 2011. I'll never forget it. We were doing, me and Aaron were doing a third floor. We were at the unload. It was just me and him, and the lady had a lot of boxes. It was 16-foot truck. Truck was full. So it took us about 2 hours to unload, but I could hear Paul McCartney uh, playing Wrigley Field while we were unloading. And I can't say I'm the biggest fan of the Beatles, but I love the song "Something" by the Beatles. And when he performed "Something," I could hear him performing it. And we were about 4 or 5 blocks away, but wasn't that far. It was close enough that you could still hear him play. And I'm unloading these boxes and I'm running up the stairs, coming back down, getting them, and I'm hearing him play. And just the feeling of just being out, in the world, not locked up in a cubicle, um, not locked in a back room at Target or a back room at the Gap, not confined to a small back room of a 2,500 square foot clothing and cell phone store in the middle of the ghetto on the south side, or you know being hundreds of thousands of miles away from home on holidays in a hotel room after I'm done with whatever campaign I'm working on, in a hotel room at the Extended Stay America. you know um you know I I I I I started to think like, man, this is what's up. This is who I am. You know what I'm saying? And that's when I realized that uh, freedom, was very important. That's when I realized that I wanted to be free. I didn't want to be confined to any of those places that I had been before, and I didn't want to be confined to anything similar to those places that I had been before in the future. When listening to Paul McCartney, being able to breathe that air, even though I'm doing grueling work, and even though I don't know what the future holds for me, I couldn't even see then where I'm at now. Everything that I endured from that moment up until now, I wasn't thinking that far ahead yet at that moment. But at that moment, just listening to Paul McCartney perform my favorite Beatles song and being able, not even being in the stadium, but being able to hear it while I'm doing my work, that was freedom. And at that point, I knew that I could never work a job again. I could never be a part of anybody's system. I had figured out a way to make money. I had figured out a way to make a good living. And I knew at that time it couldn't last that way because I was still under the table. I wasn't licensed yet. But that moment, I knew I was free. And freedom was very important to me. I got to see girls, just driving from one move to another or from the load to the unload in the summertime. You could see the girls walking down the street. And freedom was very important to me, just being in the world, being able to eat whenever I wanted to eat in between jobs. If I wanted to work, I could work. If I didn't want to work, I didn't have to work. Gigs didn't exist at that point. Gigs didn't exist at that point. So I didn't decide to be an entrepreneur and choose a box truck because I wanted to be rich. Rich was never something that never crossed my mind. Never crossed my mind still to this day. Rich never crossed my mind because I had no plans. I had no idea that where I am today and everything that I went through, I was going to go through it. I was just trying to survive and keep money coming in. I had a back against the wall situation and I turned nothing into something. So I didn't think about being rich. I didn't think about, well, I'm going to do this so I can go buy a nice big fancy car or a nice big fancy house or a nice big fancy condo. Those weren't the reasons that I chose a box truck over the rat race. The reason why I ended up choosing a box truck over the rat race and applying myself to get to my peak was freedom. And until this day, from that day, I've been free. I'm free now. I'm free to do whatever I want when I want to do it. I've done educated myself on freedom so much that I was able to free myself from what I built to be free. You see what I'm saying? I'm to the point now where I'm so free, my money works for me instead of me working for money. So the reason why I chose a box truck over the rat race is because of freedom. Freedom allows you to be whoever you want to be. It allowed me to be who I am today, and it continues to allow me to be and do the things that I want to do when I want to do them. Now, granted, you got to work to survive, and being free ain't easy. Some people have to be in the rat race. Some people, it's probably safer for them to be in the rat race if you don't have the ambition. It takes ambition to be free. Not everybody can be free because some people will take freedom for granted. Don't mean you ain't got to work. You got to have ambition. But with that ambition, you get rewarded down the line. And if you take your freedom serious and you couple it with ambition and with, motivation, and you make smart decisions and you apply yourself and you plan things out accordingly, freedom is the best thing in the world. So I wanted to tell that as my first story to kind of put things into perspective for people who may watch this, so that you can understand everything is not about money. Money will come in due time. When you create your business plan, you need to do a mission statement. That was one of the first things I did. You know, freedom is what got me to where I'm at. And it continues to keep me in line and keep me grounded, because I understand the responsibility that comes along with freedom. I understand it's a serious responsibility that comes along with freedom. So shout out to everybody that came in tonight to listen to my box truck story, episode 1. I got plenty more stories to tell. I'm actually going to open up the series to other people if they do want to come up and tell some of their stories. So this is just one of my stories, my first stories to open up this series. Let me see some of these comments. Let me see. Watching from Kentucky. Shout out to Cargo Chris. Kelvin Birch, I see you. Lower back injured. Make sure y'all hit that like button. Somebody injured their back. Commerce Casino Cali. Somebody injured your back. Hope your back get better. Whoever injured their back. I ain't following the conversation. Watching for STL. I appreciate y'all. I just wanted to tell that story. More stories to come. I may jump on live again tomorrow or Monday. But until the next time, guys, I'm out. Peace.